So in the next session, hopefully you'll be able, as an audience, as a listener, you'll be able to take away some ideas, some techniques, some tactics perhaps on what you hear on stage, and perhaps apply that in your own world from next week onwards. Okay, so what I'll do once again, I'll introduce the panelists, and then the moderator that will again try to make sense of everything, putting it all together, and helping you as an audience understand what's actually going on. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Managing Partner at Leap Ventures, Mr. Henri Assali. Also the MEVP Managing Partner, Mr. Ehsan Jawad. We also have from Souk.com the CEO, which is Mr. Ronaldo Mushawar. And also the COO at Akhtabut, Mr. Ibrahim Siksik. We have one person, you're not all these people, you're just one person, I'm sure, and I'm sure the others will join us. Are the others here? Okay, and once again, your moderator taking care of this panel. Might be a good idea if you sit over there, perhaps.
Ibrahim, yeah.
I don't know whether the others are coming.
Come up.
We should change the name.
Thanks, Peter, for the intro. I spotted Ronaldo earlier. Yeah, there he is. Is that right? Yeah, that's him. So we have our other panelists joining.
Is Mr. Ishan?
Okay, they're both here. Excellent.
Okay. And also your moderator, to introduce your moderator, I'm sure many people know this gentleman. I'm sure you certainly know the accelerator here in Amman, in Jordan. From Oasis 500, the CEO, Mr. Faisal Haki.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for attending, first of all. I mean, this is the after-lunch graveyard slot, so not the best time to talk about growth hacking. But nonetheless, I think we have a colorful panel amongst us, and I think we'll engage in a nice, engaging discussion with the audience too. So maybe I'll talk about the growth hacker par excellence that we had today, Mr. Donald Trump, the guy who growth hacked his way into presidency. I heard a nice sort of analysis of what happened today. One guy said that Franklin D. Roosevelt made his way into presidency because of the radio. JFK made his way because of TV. And Obama, the first term, he came into presidency because of the internet. And Trump came into presidency because he was the villain on a lot of reality shows. And apparently in the age of social media, the villain is the guy who succeeds, which is why he ended up into presidency. So I'll start with that. I'll leave you guys to talk a bit about yourselves, maybe quick intros each. I mean, I think most of the audience know who you are. Henry, we'll start with you.
Thank you.
شغال Mike?
Now it should be. No. 1, 2. There we go. Okay. I'm Henri Assali. I'm a partner at Leap Ventures, a growth stage venture capital company out of Lebanon. I used to be an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I started a company in the first wave of web companies called bizrate.com and Shopzilla. And I've been doing many startups since. That's it.
Ibrahim?
Okay. Is this on? Hello?
Yeah.
No, it is.
Okay, so my name is Ibrahim Siksik, and I'm the CEO of Akhtabut.com. You guys know Akhtabut.com is Jordan's leading job portal. But before that, I started a couple of companies before, one of them in Jordan as well, called Crystal Call, which was Jordan's first contact center. And I think I know a lot of you here as well. So.
Thanks.
My name is Ronaldo Mushawar. I'm the co-founder of Souk.com. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Yeah. I'm Ronaldo Mushawar. I'm the co-founder of Souk.com. We co-founded the company with Samih and Hussam, who were the co-founder of Maktub. We're in a way startup, but we're quite big today. But we have kept a lot our entrepreneurship and startup culture. So in the last 3 years, We've launched 4 and invested in 2 other companies. We have a logistic last mile company called Q Express, a payment company that's quite leading in its space called Payfort, just won the FinTech Company of the Year yesterday. We just invested in InstaShop, which is a hyperlocal grocery. We have Helpit, which is a marketplace for food services. Wing, which is a marketplace for logistics. So while we are growing the business as maybe a more mature phase and we've been able to raise money, I'm a big believer, even our countries run, we have a country manager here, Salim, who's from Jordan running our Saudi team. Each kind of country runs as a team. And we're a big believer that you need that drive as an entrepreneur, even in a bigger structure, to continuously maybe cannibalize yourself or grow fast.
Right. Thank you, Ronaldo. Hassan?
Yes, my name is Hassan Jawad. I'm been in the digital space for about 16 years now. It's a long time.
Right.
And so I started a company called Zawiya, which is a business information company, which we ended up selling to Reuters. And since then, I've been investing in startups, and recently been a partner, a general partner actually in MEVP.
Right.
Investing in early stage to Series A startups. Actually, we have one investment, one big investment here in Al-Tabbi, which is a healthcare telemedicine.
We know them well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, excellent. So I think we're a bit short on time, so we'll try and focus on the main key takeaways from the discussion. Maybe I'll start with a sort of a concise definition of what growth hacking is. I mean, if you break it down, growth is obvious. It's the true compass of North. Companies need to grow. They need to grow in revenues and users and market traction and net profit, obviously. So that's the simple part. The hard part is the hacking part, which is more or less doing stuff that is out of the norm, out of the ordinary, stuff that isn't done the typical way growth is usually achieved. So if you look at corporations, what corporations do, these are companies that typically pay for growth. Okay, so that growth is directly linked to a budget that a company has. And that budget is driven by certain targets that companies need to achieve. And I think the term growth hacking is synonymous with startups and the uncertainty that startups need to live through. So that obviously there aren't that big of a budget for a startup to spend on growth. And that is where the hacking part comes in and where the thinking in an unconventional way comes in, which is a lot of what guerrilla marketing is about. So maybe I'll pick your brains on who you think are maybe the best examples of growth hackers in our modern time in the Arab region, companies that you've either worked at, invested in, or looked at or transacted with, that you think are great examples of growth hackers. I'll start with that, and maybe give a few highlights of where that brilliance came into play.
Okay, so I worked at thebizzle.com. Thebizzle is a leading classifieds website in the UAE, and I was there from when they were really, really small, and now they obviously became a huge enterprise. And the things that we did to growth hacking is, I think we were given a lot of room to experiment with a lot of different ideas. We tried to have a mixture of offline plus online. End of the day, we wanted adoption. So we really tried many things. And literally went down to talking to people, getting them to download or use the app, or actually at that time there was no app. And having people just to touch the product was our biggest barrier. So once we discovered that once people had it, it was a much easier sell. So that was, I think, the enlightenment there. But also keep in mind that we had different markets, so different markets reacted differently. So that was, honestly, we saw the hockey stick growth from trying different things. So this is where this is what I saw from at least the business.
Right, right. Ronaldo, I know for a fact that, you know, in e-commerce, there are several metrics that the business looks at, and the conversion rates are obviously one of the most important. Maybe you can tell us a bit about how Souq managed to growth hack their conversion rates.
So, I mean, I'll just talk about a little bit when you don't have the resources, and then maybe
Right,
I can give
right,
some
right.
examples. So I remember when we launched Souq, we really didn't want to have an auction model on our site. We knew kind of like eBay is not doing well, but traffic wasn't coming. And one of the things we did was, and we didn't have any marketing money, obviously. So one of the things we did was with every bid, you would get an SMS and drives the visit. And cost per SMS was like 1 cent. So you would do a
Right.
cost per visit at 1 cent. And cost to bid on a keyword that we wanted was like 15 cents. So model, we actually ended up retiring it. That's the word I like to use for auctions. So that was one. Second, we knew also we wanted to touch and feel and operate categories properly, but also we had no capital till 2012 when Naspers invested in Souq properly. So at that stage, we launched a marketplace model, so we made our vendors do the work. It was not the perfect experience, but if you ask me, the two key elements to growth hacking at an early stage, you cannot lose track of your product. You can do MVPs and make sure like some things are not fully automated. You can do maybe manual work at the back end, but what customer sees should look good. So the investing there, 1-2 people in the front end and the product is very
Right.
quite important early. And then for us, Maktoub and others were all form of partnerships. So we did a lot of partnership. I remember with auction, we had even a partnership with Royal Jordanian. Imagine us going to Royal Jordanian and selling tickets that you can auction. They actually don't auction. They don't have fairs for auction. And we
Right.
worked and hacked our way through that. They got the deal, and the site went down. The minute the deals were live, we had 2,000 tickets to the US starting at 1 JD, and we became...
Yeah, I remember that actually.
And we went down, literally, and we didn't know we had all the tickets running at the same time, and the auctions all closed at 11 p.m., and
Right.
just the site went down, and RJ was calling us, but they were happy. Somehow, at the end, they got a lot of
Right.
exposure and traffic, so we've done a lot of crazy things to hack our way through. I think that's key. Today, when it comes to conversion, we have a person here called Rani Dababne. Maybe you guys can meet him. He's right there. His fame to Souq is his conversion, day in, day out. He's a business partner, so we don't look at him as the technical people.
Right.
His team is our partner. Actually, we have no business owner. He's the business. So we make the engineers own a business metrics and continuously work with us to develop it. So,
Okay,
that's
so
our
maybe we'll
conversion.
ask Rami later on what tools he uses to get to that conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean,
The Halo
he's the
conversion
master.
rate.
He's the best in the region.
Yeah. Henry, maybe tell us a bit about what you've experienced in the businesses that you've done in your fund. What were, you know, sort of examples of success when it came to making omelets with no eggs?
Yeah, before you start your growth hacking piece where you're trying to accelerate your growth, you have to look at the friction in your model. If your model has a lot of friction, however much you try to push, well, that friction is friction. So you're going to be working very hard for pretty much nothing. So you have to look at your model first and see where's the friction. So as you were talking, when you try many things, you're trying them to understand where the issues are and where the complications lie. And okay, what does it take to do this? Well, the user has to go through 7 steps to do something. And if you're going to try to acquire users at this stage, and the users need 7 steps to do something, you've wasted your money.
Right.
Oh, so the key here is to first really understand where the friction is. Take marketplaces, for example. What's the friction? You need to get users and merchants, let's say, but together at biz rate. Even 20 years ago, it was, or let's say, well, it was pretty decent sized about 15 years ago. As we were growing the marketplace, we had to figure out how do you do this? Well, you do it by getting every player in your tiny little ecosystem the value that they're looking for. So merchants need to have clients, users need to have merchants. So you can't just start by saying, I'm going to be big. It doesn't work in a marketplace. You start by growing one side, which grows the other side, which grows the other side, which grows the other side.
Yeah.
So that's how you have to grow. So to me, the word hacking is a misnomer. You just have to understand what's going on. You have to see what the friction is, and you have to remove the friction and give real added value. And at that point, it starts rolling on its own. You take a puck on ice. You only need a little push, and it goes all the way to the end.
Right. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the interesting concepts in hacking is the way hackers look at funnels. I mean, they look at them in an inverted way. They typically start looking at friction that happens at the very end of that funnel and build their way up, because these are the people or the clients that have reached to that point, okay, and this is where the tipping point typically, or the falling off point typically happens, and they fall out of that funnel. So, for example, if you're an e-commerce business, you would look at the page that comes before pushing that payment button and start backwards. And that's probably the best way to sort of hack your way up to a better conversion rate. Hassan, would you like to share some war stories on hacking?
Yeah, well, I think this is a technical question, right? So, there's many answers to that, and we have to differentiate between what's marketing and what's growth hacking, right? So, I mean, in the Zawiya days, we did a lot of marketing sort of campaigns that were very successful and that worked amazingly, but that's not really growth hacking. So, or guerrilla marketing, as you mentioned, it's distinctly different. I mean, growth hacking is about engineering growth into the product. So the product itself has to be rebuilt, if you like, or redesigned, or rewired so that it grows by itself.
Right.
Right. So it's a very technical area, actually, and I mean, so I'm not going to be able to give you examples because it's I think beyond this forum. So the biggest area where the product will be able to grow by itself is if you could leverage the community that the product is designed for. In other words, basically you do social, some sort of a social angle into the product. So removing friction, for example, and if you have frictions in the conversion here and there, that's not okay. That's going to give you a little jump in your numbers. But that's not going to give you accelerated growth, right? Which is, when you're talking about growth hacking, you're talking about sort of getting into an exponential curve.
Absolutely.
So it's different than
right.
Yeah.
The term itself, has probably been coined only recently, growth hacking, but the practice has been around for quite some time. I mean, SEO is probably the first form of growth hacking that online businesses typically experience. A/B testing is another. There are a lot of companies that have masterminded and sort of fine-tuned these practices. But then again, the interesting thing about these is that there is no one good tool for any business, and there is no one tool that is, continually working for all businesses. And this is why, businesses are trying different tools at different times for different products and different audiences. One of the interesting types that I've come across is content marketing, and I think content marketing is one area where the people pushing out that content need to look at content as a product itself. I mean, it has to answer a real question and offer a real answer, obviously, and it has to be a solution of some sort to a real problem. And typically, it's not associated with the product or the company itself, so it's not a direct sell. It's a very tactile kind of indirect way of pushing or promoting that brand. Brahim, you're shaking your head.
No, just...
You want to tell us about content marketing?
Okay, so Akhtabut right now is actually, how do I say this? We're changing our strategy, because in the beginning it was just very basic content that we were posting, but now I think we want to bring a lot of relevancy to what we're trying to offer to actually job seekers. But not only job seekers, we also have to, how do I say this? Make sure that the actual employer as well understands the full cycle. So it's not about writing better articles or tips or how to get a job, what to do in an interview. It's a lot more than that. It just, we're trying to kind of develop a behavior for, like something beyond personas, because we see a lot of people asking a lot of questions that are not relevant to what we offer. So we want to open up our horizon to actually offer more than what we're doing right now.
Right, right. I think another interesting part that I've come across when it came to hacking growth in certain areas that were really trailblazing their industries at the time is the story behind what YouTube did. And sort of, the way YouTube thought of their product is like it's the answer to boredom. When people are bored, they go to YouTube. And the way they did that is they looked at the different habit-forming aspects of that product or that service, and they sort of infused it into the layout, the length, the suggestions, the machine learning that YouTube does, and the habit-forming influences that they can build into their platform. Ronaldo, obviously, Souq obviously deploys a lot of these tactics, these habit-forming tactics. I can tell that if you buy a product on Souq, you automatically get pushed a lot of other products based on what previous users have done. What other habit-forming tools do you use?
I think the key is your data warehouse. So to get to that stage, there's a lot of things you can do to try to target things to user behaviors based on what they do on the site. Just take that like one step back. We spent last year doing a lot of work into how we capture the data across, especially now that you have mobile, web app, right? You have three different experiences going at the same time. It's usually the same user, and just investing a bit more into tools, into your data warehouse. The first stage is capturing that data properly as best as you can, trying to identify the user through either direct or indirect identifiers. So if he's logged in, you have a direct. If he's not logged in, through other means, maybe his social links and so forth, and then just build productionizing that data. First, you take the data, you build analytics, so you're able to do a lot of reporting, so you this is what's going on, this is where the friction area. But I think where you start seeing some benefit or payback coming is when then you take that into a production mode where it becomes a bit more live. So A, build the data warehouse, B, start looking at analytics out of that warehouse to make sure actually it does make sense, because if you capture the wrong data structures, you could go in the wrong way. And then the third is, in phases, introduce production data, recommendation, emails that are triggered based on events, items you buy, items you bought before. Example now, with the Note 7 issue with Samsung, we are able to target everyone who had a Note 5 to 6 with large screen phones, because we know they might be in the market and the replacement's not available. So you try to build these based on the data. But I think the key is to do all that. That sounds like everyone says, do you have recommendation? That's like the end of the journey. The beginning was just invest a lot and be patient as a team to get that data in and then have it meaningful.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the reason you do this is, this allows you to build trust around the brand. It allows you to personalize the relationship between, Souq as a platform for e-commerce and the users.
I think the key as we go forward with mobile, right? I think of it as the only platform a consumer use. Ignore the web, but still it's present. To stay on the mobile phone, you probably use 10 to 12 apps. You need a frequency of purchase, a frequency of use. If you're using a food delivery company, you use it quite often, so you keep the app. If you're using a transport company, you keep. So for us, it's quite important that we are relevant when it comes to shopping, and we stay. The way you stay, you have to stay relevant. You have to have a dialogue with the audience or the user, and it can't be too messy. It has to be quite personalized for you to be able to achieve results. So the driver for us is on mobile, what can you do to keep your app on the phone? That's really, and then you go from there, can you drive purchases, lifetime, all the other numbers.
And that's a particular challenge for e-commerce, because I think I once heard that a typical e-commerce transaction usually happens after the 6th or 7th attempt. And it's typically not on the same platform or screen. So you open it up on your laptop or handset or tablet, and then you buy it on your mobile, and the decision to buy obviously there are a lot of sporadic decisions, but the ones that are educated typically happen after the 5th or 6th attempt, something like that.
Pre-mobile, that is all true from what we see. Post-mobile, when you go into the app on a mobile, you're so relevant to what you're trying to do. So you might be with a friend trying to check a TV, or someone tells you about a product, or a lady is like wants a fashion, so she gets a look. Here's the new look. So I think on mobile you could do a bit better, but I think in general you have to work to convert your customers. Yes.
Right. Henry, Ihsan, maybe a question to both of you. I think one of the main challenges that face startups in our region is the ability to access markets beyond the ones that they have direct control or access to. So one of the problems that we face at Oasis is that most companies look at Jordan as a test market. It's a market where you launch your product, you build a certain profile around the people who want to use that product or service, you learn a bit, you test a bit, but then the real traction happens elsewhere. So these growth hacking techniques are usually used as a leverage to leapfrog into other markets. What are your takes on using those techniques? For example, if you have a company that is based in Amman or in Lebanon and wants to sell into Riyadh and Jeddah and Dubai and Doha and all the high spending metropolitan centers in the GCC, where have you seen examples or tools of success that have allowed companies to leapfrog into other markets without physically being present in those markets?
I think that growing geographically is not a matter of hacking it. It's a matter of proper operations. Unless you're a completely virtual thing or you're an app or something like this, and sometimes you've got to do things that we haven't talked about. One thing that we haven't talked about, which is the oldest growth hacking technique ever, which is handling pricing. Two examples. One example is one of our portfolio companies does a 24/7 energy storage and management solution for weak grid environments, so where the electrical grid sucks, where you have many power cuts, etc. And they give you 24/7 power locally with solar panels or anything you need. And these guys sell their solution for $50,000. Okay, although a sale is very quick, even if it's that expensive, because it's very useful. One of the things they noticed is, in order to shrink the sales cycle to almost nothing and make a very quick sale, is to not sell the product for $50,000, but to sell the electricity. Mm-hmm. These guys, because the client knows the electricity. Another example, which is very, very obvious, which is the true, what we want to call growth hacking, but it's just basic venture capital thinking, if you want, is my former partner at Bizred had a company called Flipagram. And Flipagram, when he got it, had a couple of 100,000 users maybe, and they were selling the app for 99 cents. What he did, he simply got it to be free with a Flipagram wording on the video that was generated, a watermark on the video. And instantly, the app started gathering millions and millions of users, and he raised $50 million from VCs, and he kept growing that way. So it's pretty basic, guys. Just, the first thing you need to look at is money. How much does it cost? You want to grow this MENA ICT, drop the price from $700 to $50.
Yeah,
that's a good suggestion to the organizers. Okay.
No, I mean, it's true. I'd agree with that. We invested in a company last year, which it's based in Abu Dhabi, of all places, and the biggest user base or the biggest market that it has is in the States.
Right.
So, actually, the biggest three markets are, the US, UK, and Australia. Completely sort of knocked us off. We never thought we could invest in a tech company based in the region that is sort of doing business globally. But the way they did it is they built a very high quality software that would cost about $100 a month to rent, or the SaaS model, and then they just put it out for free. And so you had all these businesses in the US just downloading it and using it, and actually being dependent on it. So basically, this software helps salons and sort of massage places and so on to run their business. It's a scheduling software. So suddenly you have millions of dollars now going through this software, through millions of, well, not millions, sorry, thousands of vendors out there, thousands of small businesses. And the amount of data they're getting is just tremendous. So just by tweaking the business model slightly, you can grow definitely beyond your borders, which is critical, especially for VCs. You have to grow. None of these countries that we're in, including Saudi, by the way, are big enough for a VC investment, unfortunately.
Right.
So we have to go beyond your borders.
Okay, I think we're tight on time, so I'm going to leave like 10 minutes for the audience to make questions, but maybe have some closing remarks. I think I'd like to hear your advice, particularly to startups, since that's our business. Maybe give some advice to startups on where to look for growth and how to hack growth, regardless of the type of business or service that they're offering. If you have some sort of generic guidelines to give them. The ones that I personally sort of advocate are ones that are database. So I typically ask my companies if they have analytics, if they use analytics, if they collect data, if they use heat maps, that sort of, those sorts of numbers. And then I ask them to get user feedback. So in addition to the data and the information that the data gives you, you actually have to talk to your clients and get a human interaction with them to listen what they need, what they like, what they don't like, and then do a lot of testing. Okay, so obviously whether you're testing the product itself, never settle for one type of product or one type of channel. And then again, when hacking the growth itself, never rely on a single channel or a single platform or a single method of disseminating your product and announcing it to the public. Henry, we'll start by you, and if you have sort of an umbrella tip on how to growth hack a startup business.
Yeah, as you said, you really have to understand your users, your product, how they're using it, where the problems are before you go for it. And when you're going to go for it, like on every channel and try to grow your business, now that it's clean and friction is gone and you're going crazy for it, first go for the cheap stuff.
Right.
For the really cheap stuff and learn how to do it, and you're going to go. And another, although there's one thing, one tip I want to give you is, if you try to buy traffic, and you're spending a little money to understand how the traffic is bought, don't assume that little spend is going to stay the same. So your ratios are going to stay the same as you expand dramatically. That is not going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. That's very accurate when it comes to customer acquisition. I've seen customer acquisition numbers that continue to drop, and there's a tipping point that has nothing to do with the volume of transactions happening, where it goes up back again. So, you're absolutely right. Brahim.
Just to add to Henry's, I totally believe that, especially for a startup, when you start up a company, you're trying to fix a problem, and this is, and with that, you really need to discover who are these people that you're trying to fix this issue to. So this is how I've always thought of when I started the couple of companies that I've did. So this is a very simple formula for, at least for me, was just A, know who your customer is, and B, what is the problem you're trying to fix. So
right. Back to basics.
Very basic.
I think for me, just test fast and fail fast, and just keep trying.
That's excellent advice.
And then just continue. Partnerships is a great way not to spend your own marketing. figure out what partners you can have that have customers, and it's safe, because marketing is quite a big expense. So continue to explore local partnership. You are relevant, you can tweak your product to make sure that you can do it. Bigger companies are not able to do that, so just continue.
Absolutely. That kind of thinking is quite scarce, because we see a lot of startups that, they want to do it on their own, and partnerships are typically, at the back burner. It's not something that they think about, and they typically think of them more as competition rather than partnerships.
It's hard because it does deviate you from the main, maybe, vision that you have, but
right.
It allows you to grow, and you have to kind of balance.
But
I understand the challenge for someone who wants to go to B, and then this partnership wants to push them to C.
Absolutely.
That could be a challenge.
Absolutely. Hassan will
for very early stage companies, we tell them to stop spending any money on marketing and put together a growth group, actually. Like even if it's one person or two people, and not give them any marketing budget.
Yeah.
So that they go back to the product and they figure a way to tweak it so that it self-propagates.
I agree with you, and I think this is where it becomes a bit confusing for startups, because, unlike a typical business, a startup cannot settle with 5% year-on-year growth. They need to do like 100% month-on-month growth. Right. And unless they achieve 100% month-on-month growth, that second round of rounding would never come. So they're being pulled in different directions. They need to focus on the product. They need to focus on, the metrics of the business, and at the same time, they need to achieve.
But it's amazing what you could do when you tell them, or you tell whoever is responsible, that you don't have marketing budget.
Yeah.
Right. So they suddenly start rewiring this thing in a way that it could self-propagate, including potentially partnering up as well. Right?
Absolutely. Thanks,
Hassan. Magic happens.
I think we have time for about 3-4 questions. We have a lady in the middle.
Today is my day as a failure startup. No, I have actually 2 questions to ask. First one is it has to do with the business model, because in the Arab world there's I think it's something common with these startups. We have a problem with getting people to payment gateways. For example, if I have a marketplace and I'm trying to get people to buy through my site directly, and I have problem with people converting people because of the payment method. People in the Arab world are still hesitant, especially in Jordan or even in our Middle East region, using the credit cards, for example, as payment. They hesitate, so they come to the product, they look at the product, they visit it several times, but when it comes to actual buying, they hesitate, not because they don't trust the product, but just because they don't want, either they don't have credit cards, or because they are hesitant to take the risk. So this is one thing. Second thing has to do with the converting customers. I also face some problems of people, the traffic is high, but the conversion is very low. And I'm trying to understand why the conversion is low. First, as I said, it has to do with the business model, maybe because people hesitate to buy online, still in the Arab world. Second problem has to do with people trusting a new startup company. I need the credibility, I need to be trusted, so that means a lot of marketing and branding budget. But as a new startup, I still need, I cannot afford to do this, especially if I am self-investing startup. And you just mentioned that don't put a lot of money on marketing. I'm trying to use organic way of growth, like investing more in the SEOs, and it helped a lot, but still I cannot grow further because of this issue of trusting a new product, trusting a new platform. If you have any comment or any advice to give to
Thanks, Hanan, thanks. Henry, I think this falls squarely in what you labeled as friction, right? I'll let you answer that one.
How should I say that? Don't try to swim underwater without breathing apparatus. You're trying to do the impossible. Do the possible instead.
You're going for the worst category, the worst business model in the region, and you're complaining, rightly so, about it. Don't do it. Do something else. In 10 years, you'll be able to sell online in the Middle East without a problem. Today, you can't do it. Go do something else.
That is raw. Any other questions over there? Gentlemen on the back. Thanks, Henry.
Hello, Rajai Haddad. I'm a social media consultant and trainer. I have a question, probably not directly related to that topic, but you mentioned content. And I'm noticing that you have Souq.com and you have Akhtabut. So I think 90% of what you're doing is content, or what you're having on your websites is content. So how do you see today's social media accuracy of content on your websites, and how can you guarantee this accuracy of content for the end user? Because I might just share something on Souq.com or Akhtabut about my profile or about the thing that I'm trying to sell, but it's not accurate content. And accuracy, as you know, it might be misleading for the offline and online media and the end user. I mean, we were talking about content is the king. I believe that content is not the king. Context and accuracy of content is the king. So how do you see today's social media content on your websites, and how can you measure its accuracy and control the accuracy?
I think you should take this.
So at Souq, we have two metrics. We have something called qualitative and something called quantitative. So qualitative metrics are actual data points that we do track to figure out how accurate is what the seller is listing versus what the buyers are getting. And those are things that we measure based on our data warehouse that are very defined. We've agreed these are good KPIs and we track them. That gives you 80% of accuracy, but still there is a qualitative. So then we go and try to come up with a qualitative measure that depends a lot on user feedback to kind of say, okay, to close the loop also, not to be only stringent on numbers, what is some qualitative measures, number of pictures, background of photos. There's qualitative measures that we can maybe, what users are saying, and then we kind of combine them into some kind of a quality score that we try to keep, and then the ones that are below standard, we have a content team to help them. The ones that are above standard, we look at them and copy them and try to figure out how these guys are scoring so well. So I think you can't do it all subjectively and you can't do it all mathematically. You just kind of figure out what works for you as a model.
And I think, can I add something? We also, because we're a job website, so we also control some of our content by, we verify everything that's posted on our site. So we do a lot of moderation. So that's another way we can verify the validity of the actual content. So this is something that we have to do, because then it will be out of control, especially when it comes to jobs. So
maybe we'll take one or two more questions. The gentleman at the back.
Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to meet with Hassan today. Hassan is a very old friend of mine. All of what I heard here is either technical or financial. Nothing is mentioned about culture. And all about, when you talk about startups, it's all about changes. We have a very popular proverb which says, Allah la yaghayir alayna, which means by default, by culture, we are against startups' approaches. So anybody has any kind of cultural obstacles that they face would like to highlight?
Ibrahim, I'm pretty sure you have something about that in your business.
Okay, yes, obviously you always want, especially in a startup environment, you have to look for people that you can actually play with, essentially. So in a startup environment where things are not very, in the beginning, not very processized, not very documented, so you really need to find that right fit for you and right fit for the startup. I've experienced this in my startups as well, where we I usually, well, my rule is always hire happy people, always, hire people who have families, because they were very, very productive, and they came in and they built the culture of the actual company as well. So this is something that it is a very big part of growth hacking, because your team, you really need to say, you really need that team that gels together. So we had a lot of fancy terms, even at Dubizzle and Naspers, stuff that maybe I can't say on stage right now, but the sentiment was you really need to hire a lot of people who believe in what you're trying to do as well. So I think that's the only things I can tell right now without.
Thanks, Brahim. If no more questions, we're going to wrap up. We have the gentleman at the back.
So I know that you all have seen a lot of e-commerce startups or e-commerce mature companies. Do you play any role on how to prevent dumping of low quality technology in your market, which is literally ruining your whole economy?
Anyone in particular to answer that question?
Of course, for soup.com.
Okay, cool. So we believe in direct factory to consumer models, and what we like to see is that technology is available to everyone, as accessible and at a low cost, and we have a spectrum of products from the very premium, but we see a lot of growth coming from affordable, high-spec products, and we push hard to get these too. We have a few brands that we've incubated on our platform that do in the millions of devices a year, and we're very happy that we cherish these two as success stories as entrepreneurs on our own platform.
Thanks, Ronaldo, for answering the off-topic question. Please join me in thanking our panelists. Thank you all for taking the time, and thank you for attending. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A great panel there. Thank you very much. In fact, Henry is actually on his way right now into a car. Oh, there he goes, into a car. His bags are packed straight to the airport, and he's out.